What's going on, everyone? In today's review, I will be doing a long-term review of the MBRP 3-inch catback exhaust. I first uploaded a sound comparison of the stock exhaust versus the MBRP. That is part 1 of this series. Now we are on to part 2, which is the overall review of it. So a lot of people have commented on that said video and asked me several questions about the exhaust, and I'd like to address those questions in this video. First, starting with the FITMENT. So this is going to fit the 3rd generation Tacoma, which is 2016 to 2019 as of now. It's going to fit all variations of the Tacoma, meaning that it fits the SR, the off-road, the sport, and the pro. And it also fits long bed, short bed, access cab, or double cab. So if you have a Toyota Tacoma long bed with double cab, you do not need to cut the exhaust at all. If you have the most common configuration, which is what I have, the double cab short bed, you'll need to cut 13.5 inches off the non-flange side. Next, going over the duration I've had the exhaust. So I uploaded the first video about a year and a half ago, and I put 16,000 miles on my truck, none of them being off-roading and all of them being on the street. Currently, I live in the Pacific Northwest where we do not salt the roads, so the exhaust should be in good condition when I compare it and when I pull it off the truck to look at it. Pros of this exhaust are that you're gonna have more torque, you're gonna have more horsepower, you're gonna get better fuel economy, and that you're going to be overall pleased with the way that your Tacoma sounds. Now, it won't sound like a V8, but it'll sound better than the stock exhaust. Talking about fuel economy, I noticed about 1 mile per gallon better after I installed the exhaust versus when I didn't have the exhaust on. Now, I averaged about 18 to 19 miles per gallon in a 6-speed manual transmission, and that is excellent in consideration that I have 285 tires and I have a 3-inch lift. Cons of this exhaust. Now, the exhaust isn't coated well. It's steel that's aluminum dipped, so it is corrosion resistant, but it is not corrosion proof. So you'll see at $220 that the exhaust doesn't really sustain itself as far as quality and rust control. So that's a con that I really don't like. But also, when I installed this exhaust, I was driving more log roads and back roads and not driving on the highway. What I noticed as I started driving more highway is that the exhaust does drone between 2,300 and 2,500 RPMs in anything over 65 miles an hour. Now, it's not so bad that you want to take off the exhaust immediately, but if you're commuting more than an hour, it does become annoying. Next, would I recommend this exhaust to a fellow friend or somebody viewing this video? So I'm split between this decision because you kind of have two choices. Option 1 being you want more torque, you want better fuel economy, you want better throttle response, and you want to deal with how loud the exhaust is, and you're completely fine with spending $200, I would highly recommend this exhaust. Now, it's a very cheap modification, and it's bolt-on, which means that if you don't like it, just remove it. There's nothing that goes against you if you want to sell the exhaust after you purchase it. And all in all, you'll only be out $200 at most, and maybe you could sell it used for $100 off of Craigslist or eBay. Option 2. You're kind of on the fence about getting an exhaust and you don't really know when you're searching YouTube whether or not you want to buy an exhaust. If you're thinking like this, I would highly recommend investing that $200 somewhere else. Like, for example, getting a lift, wheels, and tires first. Now, I can't talk about how the exhaust sounds with an automatic transmission since I have a manual transmission, so I don't know how the tones are heard via an automatic transmission because the truck is actually shifting for you versus a manual transmission where I hear the gear shifting as I'm shifting them. So if you're on the fence about getting the exhaust, don't. Either save up, get a better exhaust, for example, the black coated version of this exhaust, or just invest it in something else. Speaking about the quality of the exhaust as far as the actual material, so this exhaust is made from steel that's aluminum dipped. So they call that aluminized steel. And it's essentially done so that it's corrosion resistant but not corrosion proof. At the end of the video, I will go through a visual tour of the exhaust and I will show the very, very very bad rust points of the exhaust, considering that I only drive on the street. I haven't taken this thing off-roading, and for the most part, it's spent its whole entire life, the exhaust mounted to the truck, on the road, so there shouldn't be too much corrosion. As you could tell, the exhaust has been removed from the vehicle. You could see a lot of rust that's collected from where the exhaust connects to the white pipe of the Tacoma. Looking at the first hinge, you'll see a lot of rust connecting the bolts, and this actually tightens around the exhaust to hold it into place. I wish that MBRP had coated the hinges as well. Looking at the tip of the exhaust in the second hinge, you could tell that the exhaust has rusted. This is after pressure washing the exhaust, so this is what you get in real time of the corrosion that happens over a year and a half and 16,000 miles of ownership. Right here is the worst area of rust as it's exiting the muffler. I'm not sure why it rusted so heavily right there. And here's the tip of the exhaust itself. Looking from the top, you can see that rust has collected all along the exhaust, and there's no point of the exhaust in which it is not rusted. Now talking about the sound quality. Now I've received so many comments on the first video about what the exhaust sounds like in person. What I could say is that the exhaust comparison between the stock and the MBRP is very similar to in person. It sounds exactly the same over the camera. Now, there are so many different people that prefer so many different things that it's possible that it doesn't sound the way that it sounds in the video. And for those people, I would suggest saying that this exhaust sounds good, but it doesn't sound great. And it sounds good because it's so cheap, and it doesn't sound great because you're not gonna get a V8 sound from a V6 engine. Now that Toyota has taken the 4-liter V6 and changed it into a 3.5 liter, it's changed the overall dynamics of how the vehicle sounds. Now, I just wanted to let you guys know that it sounds deeper than the stock exhaust and it sounds louder, but it doesn't sound like a V8. So if you're trying to make your Tacoma sound like a V8, this isn't the exhaust for you, and I really don't think any exhaust could make a Tacoma sound like it has a V8. Now going over my personal opinion of this exhaust. Now, the exhaust is removed off the truck. I am going to be completely transparent in the way that since I was commuting for about an hour a day, I got very annoyed with the exhaust. It didn't sound very good in traffic, and I just wanted to take it off. And I ended up selling it for about $150, bought it for $200. So out the door, I was only out $50. And all in all, this is one of the only modifications that you could buy that it could pay for itself in the way that over 20,000 miles and you get 1 gallon per better gas mileage, $200, you could reinvest that into the truck. So just think of it in that way. But for my personal opinion, I would not buy this exhaust again. And I believe that the muffler is actually failing in the exhaust after a year and a half because suddenly over the last month or two, it got excessively louder. And I'm not sure what was going on. I checked all the attachment points and I couldn't find anything that was rattling. So I believe that the problem is in the muffler. But then again, this is my personal preference. Everyone's entitled to their opinion. I see a lot of guys on Amazon reviewing this, and they're saying that they would rate it 5 out of 5, or you see 2 out of 5. So it's a split camp, and I hope this video kind of helps steer you in the right direction so that you could either buy this exhaust or not. Now that we're at the end of the video, I suggest that you like, share, comment. I get to every comment that's on these videos. I really appreciate everyone asking me questions. If there's something that I didn't go over that you'd like to see in the future, please comment below and I'll do my best to make that video.